Building a commander deck is an intricate operation. Perhaps most difficult of all is the proper proportions of your commander deck's mana base. Knowing the ratio of lands to spells is often not enough. Within your deck's lands, how many should be shock lands? How many should be pain lands? Filter lands, or just basic lands? This video will guide you through the process of building a 2-color commander mana base, with emphasis on land ratios for each land type. It will offer both a budget and optimal build for your deck. If you have not already seen my videos explaining what the commander format is, how to construct your first commander deck, or how to choose your commander, you may do so here, here, and here. Please note, this video is meant both as a guide for players who do not know where to begin building their mana base, or for players having difficulty with their existing mana base. It is not meant as the final and only word on the subject. Quite the opposite. Commander is a format with a multitude of options. This video is simply meant to help those who need it, not to dictate hard or absolute rules. The basics. Building a 2-color commander mana base requires you to understand how many spells require each of your 2 colors, as well as the speed of your deck. Let's say you are playing a commander who is blue and red. Within your deck, how many spells require a red source of mana, and how many require a blue? This is important because depending on your commander and the deck you have built for them, you might have a larger requirement for red than blue, or for blue than red, or the two may be relatively balanced. Adding to the complexity is the average CMC, or converted mana cost, of your deck. On average, does your deck have spells with a high CMC or a low CMC? This will affect many important factors. This guide will present a template based on the premise of a commander deck with balanced mana requirements from both colors and with a mid-range CMC. You must analyze your own deck's requirements and adjust accordingly. But generally speaking, the ratio of lands to spells is 38 lands and 8 accelerants for a total of 46 mana sources. As always, your deck and its unique mana curve will affect this formula. You very easily could have a deck that works brilliantly with only 35 lands instead of 38, but this video will work within the template of 38 lands and 8 accelerants, and you, the player and commander constructor, will need to test and adjust if necessary. So of those 38 lands, what does the basic land ratio look like? For 2-color commanders, you will want to run between 8 and 20 basic lands. For our template today, we will be running 14, 8 islands and 6 mountains. This is the first area to turn to for adjustments in regards to the velocity of your deck, as well as the individual mana requirements. Your ratio of islands to mountains may change, as may the amount of basic lands that you include. However, I strongly advise against running fewer than 8 basic lands or more than 20. Fetch lands. A 2-color deck such as this should be running 7 fetch lands. Before we continue, it is imperative that I discuss the fetch land fallacy. Fetch lands do not significantly help with deck thinning in Commander. I'll repeat, as there is a great misconception about this. You can run additional fetch lands for shuffle effects, enter the battlefield triggers, or mana fixing, but do not run fetch lands for deck thinning. They simply do not provide a mathematically significant benefit. So yes, if you are running Sensei's Divining Top as a major component of your commander deck, then having additional fetch lands is obviously going to be an ideal route for you, due to your deck's specific needs for shuffle effects. Also, you are a monster, so which 7 fetch lands should you run? Obviously, the Zendikar or Onslaught fetch, which grabs both of your colors. In this case, a Scalding Tarn for island or mountain. But there are also 6 additional Zendikar Onslaught fetches that can grab 1 of your 2 colors. These are going to be the most optimal inclusions because they do not specify that they have to grab a basic land. However, while important, fetch lands are not as critical a component as in 3, 4, and 5 color mana bases. And thus here, the budget fetch lands can actually be preferable. So instead of running 7 Zendikar Onslaught fetches, you run just the one, and then you also run an Evolving Wilds, a Terramorphic Expanse, a Myriad Landscape, and a Warped Landscape. In addition, you'll want to run the appropriate Alara Panorama to grab either of your 2 colors. For your 7th fetch, you have the option of running one of the slow fetches from Mirage, or of course another of the Zendikar Onslaught fetches that grabs one of your 2 colors. And as always, if you are in green and white, Krosan Verge is available and is one of the most optimal choices, because it will grab both a Plains and a Forest. Krosan Verge is a great card, and I cannot imagine a green-white commander deck that would not want to run a copy. Dual lands. More so than any other mana base, a 2-color commander deck can realistically run one of the original dual lands, since unlike, say, a 3 or 4 color mana base, a 2-color mana base requires only one original dual. While certainly expensive for us in Izzet, players in Boros or Gruul might find this to be a much more reasonable goal to aim for. But of course, the difference one of these makes in a mana base for commander is minimal, and there are a plethora of perfectly functional dual lands available. In all, we want to run 7 dual lands which can produce either of your 2 needed colors. We want the most optimal options here, so cards like basic tap lands and vivid lands should be avoided entirely. 1 shock land is our most optimal option outside of an original dual. And likewise, the appropriate Battle for Zendikar have land should also be included. The remaining 4 dual lands should be a Scry land, a Pain land, a Check land, and a Man land. Filter lands. Depending on your colors, there are 1 to 2 filter lands available. Your deck should absolutely run one of the Lorwyn hybrid filters. And if you are in green-white, blue-black, white-blue, black-red, or red-green, one of the Odyssey filter lands. Sadly, these are not available in enemy colors, so you can either run a budget alternative of Transguild Promenade, or opt for an additional dual land to compensate. Next, you will want to run one of the appropriate bounce lands from original Ravnica block. These are commander staples for a reason. They provide excellent mana fixing, and the fact that all 10 color combinations exist, and that, as of the filming of this video, prices are not excessively high, makes this a must in any 2-color list. We also want to include 4 lands that produce any color of mana. Ideally, these are Mana Confluence, City of Brass, Command Tower, and Reflecting Pool. Budget options for these include Rupture Spire, Transguild Promenade, and Shimmering Grotto. So looking at our formula, we currently have, out of 38 lands, 8 to 20 basic lands, of which for this template we have opted for 14, 7 fetch lands, 7 dual lands, 2 filter lands, 4 any color lands, and 1 bounce land. This brings us to 32 lands. The remaining 6 lands can be any combination of utility lands or mono-color effect lands. What are utility lands? Utility lands are lands that do not produce colored mana but instead are run for an alternative purpose. Staple utility lands, for example, include Strip Mine, Maze of Ith, Reliquary Tower, as well as color-specific ones such as Kessig Wolf Run, which obviously you only put in if you are in red-green, Moorland Haunt for Azurius players, and of course, for our Izzet example, Desolate Lighthouse. Depending on your deck, you might also be interested in Enter the Battlefield effect mono-colored lands for this slot. These are cards that provide a single color for mana, as well as an added effect when they enter the battlefield. Examples include Bajuka Bog for black, Halimar Depths for blue, or Emeria the Sky Rune for white. What about those 8 Accelerants? Since we are in 2 colors, Ravnica is our friend, and we will want to run the appropriate Signet and Key Rune. For allied colored commanders, the appropriate Mirrodin Talisman is also an auto-include, while enemy colors can include instead a Manolith or perhaps an Armillary Sphere. Artifacts such as Commander's Sphere, Darksteel Relic, Chromatic Lantern, and Gilded Lotus are typically going to be included as well. And of course, Soul Ring, because obligatory Soul Ring. Yes, you're all tired of the joke. Well, only 2 more mana-based videos to go and then you won't have to hear it anymore. So there is our general breakdown for a 2-color deck. Remember, of course, this is a guideline meant to help players who do not know how to go about constructing a proper 2-color mana base or who have been encountering difficulty with theirs. It is far from the only strategy, but it is a successful build nonetheless. And in that sense, I hope very much that this video has been of some help to you. You can help me out by going to patreon.com and supporting this channel by becoming a patron alum. This channel exists only thanks to the support of viewers like you. And Patreon donations as low as $1 a month keep us going and growing strong. So thank you.